Hi everyone, my name is Harvey Sanchez. The topic I'm covering is prior restraint and the 2011 British injunction scandal. So the core issue at hand, British law allows for restriction of publication through injunctions and super injunctions when there is a pressing social need. The potentially unnecessary increased use of super injunctions could be a violation of the freedom of press and in form of prior restraint. And oftentimes injunctions and super injunctions are used by important figures to prevent unnecessary harm to their images. Since the 2000s, there's been a increased use of injunctions and super injunctions, oftentimes in cases that involve major public interest. The public feels that in these cases, the rights of the public have come second to the rights of the individual, corporation, and government. And as time has gone by, more of these cases have come to light. One being the Trafigura Group's super injunction in 2009, and another being Ryan Giggs' super injunction in 2011. But super injunctions aren't a thing of the past; they still happen. In 2022, the British Special Forces experienced a data breach in which almost 20,000 individuals from Afghanistan who were Taliban resistors, their information was leaked. And so the government placed an injunction and super injunction on it to try and prevent that information to get back to the Taliban. But regardless, the Taliban still got that information. The majority of those individuals were seeking asylum or trying to immigrate to England. So injunctions aren't inherently bad, like that case, but the question is, when do they become unnecessary, and then when do the rights of the press and the public take precedent over celebrity or government or corporation? So it's very important to understand what an injunction actually is. There are four main kinds of injunctions: freezing injunctions, springboard injunctions, privacy injunctions, and proprietary injunctions. While they are all uniquely different, they follow the same pathway to getting approved. First, there must be a formal application. Depending on the kind of injunction, the opposing party doesn't have to be informed. Then a judge will consider the application and hear from the proposing party. If the opposing party is informed, they will also have a chance to oppose the injunction. Then the proposing party, if approved, must provide assurance. It's called an undertaking, that if the injunction was found to be unnecessary later on, they are financially responsible. So they must provide financial compensation to the opposing party. And then the injunction is served to the opposing party. Depending on the injunction, it can be handed over physically, or it is between lawyers. So the British scandal doesn't involve one particular case. It is more about multiple cases coming out around the same time, the information coming out around the same time. So it's also very important to understand that prior restraint isn't unlike the U.S., there is no inherent protection of prior restraint. In the United Kingdom, there is laws that restrict it, and there's regulations about how to go about it, but it is not a protection of the people. So one of the forms that prior restraint takes is injunctions, specifically privacy injunctions. So that's what the scandal centers around. There are two main cases: the Ryan Giggs and the Trafigura Group's injunctions. So the main argument for injunctions is that even millionaires deserve privacy. So public figures have a different level of privacy to individuals. The majority of their lives, or lots of aspects of their lives, are in the public view. And even though they are public figures, they still deserve a level of privacy. Injunctions are one form that takes. Usually an injunction is applied in a case of public interest. Excuse me. And so that is often why celebrities are involved in injunctions. There's also another level to injunctions called super injunctions. So an injunction prevents the information being spread. A super injunction, makes the individual or organization or whoever pretend like the injunction isn't real. They aren't allowed to publish about it. With an injunction, they are allowed to publish certain things about a case. In the Ryan Giggs case, for example, only his name was removed. But with a super injunction, they aren't even allowed to acknowledge that a case exists. The public's fear is that injunctions are approved far too often without due consideration necessary, especially when they are of public interest. Likely the biggest part of this scandal is the Trafigura Group's case in 2009. They were involved in toxic waste dumping in I don't know how to say that, in a foreign country by the name of Côte d'Ivoire. I don't know how to say that. So they filed a super injunction and an injunction to stop the press from reporting on the incident, effectively making it disappear. But the information somehow got to WikiLeaks, and that information was spread around. And former reporter and now lawmaker for the Labour Party, Paul Farrelly, brought it up in Parliament. So typically with a super injunction, there is legal consequences for violating the injunction. But as a lawmaker in Parliament, Paul Farrelly is immune to that kind of those consequences. The main stakeholders in this situation is the press, the people, celebrity or those in power, and the judiciary. Judiciary branch is the one, they're the ones that approve or deny injunctions. So they are often called into question. There is no direct consequences for the judiciary branch. They aren't elected officials, so they can't be re-elected or not re-elected. And the only times that they are punished is when there is egregious moral or ethical violations, and that only happens through the Lord Chancellor. Celebrities also have a lot to lose. They lose that veil of privacy if injunctions go away. The public and press are sort of one and the same. I feel like they both gain a lot from injunctions going away. The press gains a lot by being able to monetize this information, and it's what a lot of press cares about, content. Of course, there's the moral and ethical need to talk about these issues if they are public, but the value comes from money. So, yeah. And the people, if injunctions are more restricted, there's more accountability for celebrities, governments, corporations. The power of the people comes from the people. So the public gaining the ability to hold celebrities or people in power accountable will remove some of the power imbalance between the people and those with influence. So the immediate impact of these cases coming to light was Ryan Giggs got a lot of backlash from the public. It was a cheating scandal. He cheated on his wife that he tried to hide from the public eye. And then as soon as it became public knowledge, it was reported by every single major news organization, including the BBC. And the Trafigura Group also got a lot of backlash, much more so than Ryan Giggs, because it is a humanitarian issue, dumping toxic waste in another nation. The long-term effects, long-term impacts is Ryan Giggs. He's a very affluent soccer player, but he was never seen the same in the public light. He also found it very difficult to find work after his soccer career. Struggled to gain a managerial position on a soccer team, even though he had an incredible career. And then following the Trafigura Group's exposure, they actually tried to continue to enforce the injunction. It kept the Guardian from reporting on the event. And then they tried to force Twitter to release information about the users that talked about it, while the information was not public. But because Twitter is not it's from the United States, so they follow the rules of the United States. But besides the public scrutiny, the long-term impact is that there really is no long-term impact. Injunctions and super injunctions still happen all the time. They're still solely reviewed by the judiciary, and there is no real consequences for inappropriate injunctions and super injunctions. In my opinion, I think there should definitely be more regulation. I think it would be great if they adopted the same prior restraint rules that the United States has, but that's not realistic. So if there was more regulation and more accountability for judges who continually violate these moral or ethical questions, specifically in the case of the Trafigura group, there would be, in my opinion, less inappropriate or unnecessary injunctions. And I do think that there's a level of privacy that needs to be allowed for celebrities, but I don't think that that line should be drawn at a marital case where a guy is cheating on his wife. I think without holding the judiciary accountable, there's just going to be a continual ethical shortfall. If there's no punishment, there's no consequences. That doesn't mean that I think injunctions should be completely removed. I think they're very important and very beneficial, but I feel like the rights of the public should outweigh the rights of the individual, especially when the individual is actually a corporation or the government itself. Thank you. That's it.